Hey there, we just put up the newest design, which is named Kaleidoscope. So this is going to be a quick walkthrough of just some of the options in here. There's nothing difficult going on. This is all going to be pretty straightforward stuff. But just thought we would point out what a couple of the options are just to give you a heads up. So let's jump right into this. This is going to look very familiar. Anybody that's used other templates before, I've got a lot of this set up the same ways. So we got some color grading layers at the top that's going to apply some finishing effects. Again, you can change opacities on those and things. We got our facial highlight layers. So again, just painting those in with a mask. For instance, if we turn a subject on, if they have darker skin or lighter skin, we've got a couple of different layer options here. If we pull this out, you can see that these are actually labeled here. So this would be for darker skin. So we could take this mask layer, grab a white brush, and we could add some highlight boost there just so their face and their skin kind of pops out a little bit more. We get some more definition. There's one for some lighter skin in there as well. So that's what those are about. We'll temporarily turn our subject off. On our text here, this is, for instance, this is the front text. So I've got that set for the name here. Doing something a little bit different here. Now it's just normal text that's edited as usual. So we could double click here, type in a new name, right, and we're good to go. So not a big deal. But one thing that is happening is this text is grouped so that it is creating this automatic beveled border effect. And by grouping it and putting this effect on the group instead of the individual layers, is it actually creates that beveled effect as a group of objects. In other words, it's like it's one single kind of background beveled piece instead of two separate ones. So that's why those are grouped together like that. But again, just normal, straightforward text. You'll find two subject groups in this one. Now these are set up for a couple different ways. Let's turn our subject back on for just a second here. So the top one, you'll notice this is for subject group in front of the subject, or in front of the circle, I'm sorry, which is this background circle back here. So this is in front of, so if we open this up, we put our subject right here, you're going to see that this mask is automatically going to create a fade on the legs here to kind of fade behind this text. But our subject and the legs and everything is in front of this background circle. The difference of that is the one below it. This is actually to place the subject in the background circle. And these should be named appropriately in the files. And unfortunately, in my sample document, I did not name this. So, sorry about that. Let me fix that. So that's going to read like that in the finished file. So this is for inside the circle. So we would actually drop our subject into this one, and this mask, will automatically clip our subject into the shape of that circle. So that's what the difference there is. So you can see if we drag our subject around, he's kind of inside that circle. So why the two different groups? Well, depending on what you're photographing, what subjects you're using, what they may be holding, you'll take notice that if we get low enough that our subject runs outside of our mask, you can see how you get that weird kind of cut-off effect right there. For instance, say a cheerleader with a pom-pom, maybe they're holding it low by their leg, or band with an instrument that runs low by their leg. If we put them inside the circle without some tricky masking, that's going to get cut off. So I just included this quick group here where you could drop them in front, still have that cool effect up where it kind of looks like they're in the circle, but it's just fading and they're in front of. So it's just an option in there. You can decide how you want to throw them in and clip them into that group. Okay, so we'll just turn our subject off. So that's what those two subject groups are about right there. And now let's jump into our background elements. So there's several graphics back here. I'm just going to scroll all the way down to the bottom here. Our background color ultimately is just a solid color picker. So we could come in if we wanted to make that a white background or a colored background. You know, you could mix and match that as you would like. You're going to find that the shapes are in the shape group. So there's a few different shape options in here. So one, we're going to have concentric circles that kind of get bigger as they go out from the center. Concentric squares. Here is a set of triangles. which has kind of a tribal pattern, looks kind of neat. This is a different set of triangles, so they're just, the rows are facing different ways, has its own effect, really cool. There's some hexagons, which creates like a honeycomb almost of an effect, and then there's stars. So several different shape options in here, so we'll just turn one on. And you'll notice, let me turn a couple layers off here. So our darken edges layer, that's just creating that fade. If you wanted that faded look, that vignette around, that's what that one's doing. I'm going to turn off our gradient because I want to show you that within each of the shape groups, you can individually color each of these rows. So if you wanted to create like an alternating pattern, you could simply come in, apply that color to every other row, and we could alternate a color pattern. If you wanted to do a fade from one color to another per row, you could do that. So all of these rows can be individually set. And rows, I mean like each concentric circle as its own row, basically. So those could each be set to custom colors. Or there's a couple other effects in here. So one is doing some gradient mapping. And so for that to work, what we have to do is turn on this gradient mapping layer, which is just going to look black and white. And then applying an actual gradient map to that. So when we turn this on, you can actually see we get this color map here. And so to set this color map, to set a custom gradient, for instance, one key thing that you do want to make sure that you do is that the mask is not selected, but the actual layer, the actual gradient map layer here is selected. So making sure your box is not around this mask, but it's around this gradient map. Now what will happen is if it is around the mask and you try a sample new color, you're going to get white. And so it's not going to really do, like, be able to use the color picker tool, for instance. So if we make sure that this layer here is selected, and then we go up into our gradient map, we can click on that, and we can come down here and we can set custom colors now. So we could pick the color here on the left. We grab our color from here, and now you could type in an RGB or a hex value. You could just pick a color, or you'll have your color picker tool that now you could come out here and you could custom pick, like say from a uniform or a jersey or something like that, and you could pick a custom color. So that's why you want to make sure that gradient map is selected correctly before you do this, so you can pick that custom color. So we could click OK, and then in the highlights we could come in and we could set a different color, and it's going to create that gradient map. And if we click OK here, you could actually create new if this is going to be a repetitive color combo that you might use often. You click new, it'll add it to your swatches here, and then you could always just pick from it as many times as needed. And then you could click OK. You could click reverse if you wanted to see those colors reversed. So that's how you will set that gradient map color. So let's just go back here so everything looks like it's matching. So again, that's the gradient map. This layer above it, this is simply a universal color fill. So if we turn this on, it's just going to color everything very simply the same color. And it's just a color fill layer. So we could come through and make that any color we want, or we could match a color again with the color picker tool. So that's just a universal color for everything. I do have a few texture options set in here. So this is like some light blurs. It gives it kind of an interesting, almost a disco tech type of feel to it, but I really like the look of that for some different color combinations and things. There's some streaks, which I really like the look of running through here. And then we have some glitter, of course, so there's some really nice ways to apply that glitter to the shapes. I think it really works really well with solid color fills, and I think it works really well with the stars for like cheer and dance and things like that. So there's some options there for some textures and things. And again, that's the fade. If you wanted to fade that vignette, those edges, that's what that's all about. So another option in here is the background circle. So you can see within this circle, there's a couple texture options in here. So by default, it's kind of this gradient. Did we leave our subject in here? Yep. So if we turn our subject on, you can see by default, it's just this gradient in that circle. Above, if we jump above our textures in that gradient, we can actually colorize that circle. And again, it's just a simple color picker. I cannot talk this evening for this recording. Sorry about that. I'll eventually get it out there. So a simple color picker tool to pick the color to match. You can pick from the jersey and things like that. Again, that's that gradient. Let's turn that colorize off. And then there's a few textures in here. So there's like this court texture for your court sports. There's some grass. There's a dirt texture. There's a mat for your wrestling, maybe gymnastics, things like that. And then there is also a glitter texture here. And of course you could colorize that glitter same way, just with a color picker to try and match some of those colors and things as well. And then there's just simply a solid color fill here. So if you wanted to just fill that, white, black, matching color, you could put a color, you could drop a school logo in there. So there's different fun options that you could have just based on how you fill that circle. So that's what those are about. Let's turn a couple of these off. So we'll leave the dirt. That works for baseball. There's a couple of outer circles in here that you could change the colors of and customize as well. So again, that would change that outer circle color. And then you're going to see outer circle jump up above the text. There's an inner circle. Again, that is a simple color picker. So you can pick that, change your colors as well there. And then the circular text, finally. This is just normal text. You're going to type it like straight text. It's just set to automatically wrap around those circles. So if you wanted to change this, you just double click and just work it like normal text. Now if you're going to do repeating words in it, like I kind of think looks pretty cool in there, what I would suggest is just type the first word. So, or let's say we put this school name in here. So we do Andrew Jackson, and then what I'm going to do is end with a space. So Andrew space Jackson space, and then I'm going to hit Command or Control A to select everything, Command or Control C to copy, and then what I'm going to do is just hit the end key to go to the end of the line, and then I'm going to paste that, and then hit end again, paste, and paste, and that's just going to make wrapping that text much faster. So it'd be exactly the same with this little outer rim of text here too. Again, you could turn that off or on if you didn't want it on, but you would come in and edit this like normal. So if we put their mascot, which is the Knights, with a space, so Command or Control A, Command or Control C, and then end and paste, 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 paste. And I can just keep pasting until that wraps down to where we like it. Click OK to apply. So again, it's just a straight text edit. Nothing special about that. Very easy to use, but that's how I would do it quickly. So that's basically a quick overview of the different layer options that are in here. You can imagine with these shape options, there's just between the colors and the shapes and some of the textures, there's a whole host of different looks and creations that you could come up with on this one, and I'm super excited to see this one get put to use and how everyone uses this in different ways. So again, hopefully you get a lot of use out of this. Hopefully it makes you a lot of money, and good luck.